Jennifer Smith here from Hitting Garden Oasis. Today's class is all about shepherd's purse. It is the last herb that we're going to talk about as far as this month's theme, which is herbal first aid. This is going to wrap up the month of May, and we're going to get ready to start June. So let's go ahead and get into it and learn about this month's last herb for herbal first aid, shepherd's purse.
All right, everybody. Okay, we will kick off with the botanical names. So you have the common name, shepherd's purse, of course, and that's what generally it's called in the U.S. There are other common names for other areas across the world. This is a worldwide herb, I guess you could say. The family name is the Brassicaceae family, which is the mustard family. Now, that means it's in the same family as, yes, mustard, but also cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and all of that. So it is and has been used just as food. Shepherd's purse has, as far as the history and all of that, it has been ingested as just part of, meal prep. So you can use it for culinary uses as well, and of course just to eat if you see it out in the wild. However, we'll get into the contraindications and stuff about internal use and external use later. The Latin name is Capsilla rubella, and it is considered a salad green in a lot of areas to go along with that, in the mustard family there, because it has like a peppery taste. So it's yummy. Now, energetically speaking, if this is your first class, or maybe you've seen another class and you don't remember what energetics are. So everything has energetics. We have energetics, the plants have energetics, conditions have energetics. And the reason why you need to know that, that is a Western herbalism term, energetics, but Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine has their own, like the yin yang, and then Ayurvedic has their own form of energetics. They're just different terminology. But in Western herbalism, we use the term energetics. So say I have dry skin and I'm cold all the time, so that means my energetics would be drying and cooling. So you'd want to pair that with an herb that is warming and moistening. Or as far as conditions having energetics, say you have a phlegmy cough and a fever, that means you would be on the warming side, and it would be moistening because you have phlegm that's coming up, a wet cough. So you'd want to pair that with something that would cool you down as well as dry you up. So cool down the fever and dry up the wet cough that you have. Just so that everything is in balance, which is called homeostasis, getting your body back into that homeostasis. So, energetically speaking, I almost forgot the main part. Shepherd's purse energetics. It is a warming herb, it is a drying herb, and it is an astringent. That means, say you take a drink of shepherd's purse tea, or you put the fresh herb in your mouth, you're going to feel the moisture in your mouth getting sucked out, so like an astringent feeling in your mouth. Okay, there is a lot of herbal actions. So we're gonna see how many we can get through here. So as I said, it's an astringent. It is a slight antispasmodic. So if you're having an issue where you're having any kind of spasms in your body, this would not be the one that you would want to go to as a number one choice by any means. This is more if you want to say you have some kind of a spasm going along with a wound that you're trying to treat, on a lower scale. It's a slight antispasmodic. It is aseptic. It is a vasodilator, which means it's going to enlarge your vessels. It is a hypertensive. So basically, it will raise your blood pressure. So if you're somebody who has low blood pressure, you should be safe to use it. High blood pressure, not necessarily so much. And that would be internally, of course. It is, see if I can read this. Antiemetic. It is an antidiarrheal, so it'll help if you have diarrhea, help dry that up. It is an anti-hemorrhagic, so that means it will help if there's any kind of hemorrhage. So Shepherd's purse has a lot to do with stopping bleeding. This is like a stop bleeding herb. And I know we talked about yarrow or yarrow, depending on how you want to pronounce it, last time, which is also an herb that helps stop bleeding. They both do that, but they do it in different ways. So Shepherd's purse is going to help with blood clotting and stopping the bleeding in a fast kind of a way, but in a different kind of a way, I guess you could say. Now, see, me personally, I combined both of them in the internal bleeding tincture, which it could be external or internal bleeding, but stop bleeding tincture that I have as part of the box for this month. So it can be used externally and it can be used internally until you get to a hospital if you have any kind of internal bleeding or a massive wound and you just need to kind of slow it down and try to stop it as much as possible until you get to an emergency room. That's why it's good to have on hand. So I combined both of them. So depending on the cause of the bleed or the severity of the bleed, they could work together to try to stop that. Excuse me. Okay, where was I? Hypertensive, anti-inflammatory. Again, this is not one that I would automatically go to first for inflammation, but it does have the properties. There's that anti-spasmodic. Trying to read all these. I mean, if the whole point of these classes, and even when I was making the starter monographs, was for you to get like the basics, and then you can dive deeper into it. But I have so many on here, I don't even know if you can, and you can always go back and try to write them all down as you go. It's an emmenagogue, which helps move blood through the body. It is a diuretic, which will help move fluids through the body. It is is an expectorant, so it'll help, like, this goes back to that wet cough analogy. It helps get the stuff out of your lungs, cough that up. It is a gastrointestinal aide, so it helps move. Are you getting the feeling that it helps move things around? Because it does. It helps move things through your intestinal system. It is so many things. Oh, I don't want to go to the next page. It's a hypotensive. We talked about that. It is antiseptic. Again, something else that helps with wounds. And same with that astringent. Because if you're using an astringent, say, topically in a tincture on a wound, it's going to help to cinch those wounds back together. Goldenrod is a stronger astringent than, say, Shepherd's purse, and that's why the wound tincture is in your this month's box as well, because that will help fuse the tissues back together of a wound. So you want to stop the bleeding, and you want to disinfect it, and you want to close the wound up quickly. So that's why everything that's in the box for this month works together nicely in the first aid kit. It is a blood cleanser. Sorry, lost my place. It is so many things. Antiseptic, astringent, blood cleanser. So it's going to move the bad stuff out, the good stuff in, stop the bleeding while cleansing it, and that is why it is an amazing herb. Sorry, give me one sec. I have so much going on. Alright, so now we're going to go to uses. This is another really long list, so bear with me here. I'm going to make this a little larger. Give me one second. Oh, too large. Alright. Does not want me to see it today. Come on. Alright, we're just going to have to try to bear with me here. Alright. Let me make sure you can see all this. I'm changing around there. Okay. It helps stop bleeding. We talked about that already. It helps with clotting. It will, and then it will help with, say you're somebody who has or is having or always has really heavy menstrual cycles. So it will help with that. To help stop that heavy bleeding. It helps after labor. Some people have been known to, like doulas or labor coaches, they will use this at the onset and towards the end of labor, and then definitely after labor, for that afterbirth and to stop that bleeding, and if there's any kind of hemorrhage during labor or anything like that, it has been known to be used for that. Sort of colitis, bleeding ulcers after miscarriage as well, because you know there's a lot of blood associated with miscarriage. Constrict blood vessels. So again, we'll get to the contraindications after that. Soothe the bladder if you have any kind of bladder issues. If you have blood in your urine, if you have any kind of stones in your urinary tract, it'll help clear those up as well. And it actually helps with your vision. Again, there's still a lot of tests being done on a lot of these herbs, but this is some of the tests that are being done as far as anything outside the norm that you know about Shepherd's purse, other things that they are looking into. So insect repellent, kidney laxative, liver oxide, parasites. It is known to be used to help rid your body of parasites as well. Postpartum, more for the bleeding, not so much for depression or anything like that. Reduce swelling, which makes sense because it's getting everything moving through your body better. Those are the biggest things. It says sedative and soothe muscle stimulants. Again, this would not be my go-to herb for any of that. Antiseptic, stimulant. Yeah, we've talked about those. The vasodilator. Regulates blood pressure. Again, I wouldn't use this for regulating blood pressure because of the fact that it is a restrictant, so it'll raise blood pressure. So again, keep doing your research, and I just like I do every day, because even though you find information like this one day, there might be new studies that come out the next day that either confirms or disproves it, or so always stay up to date on your information. All right, preparations. You can make a liniment out of this. And what a liniment is when you add the herbs to in witch hazel. So instead of like making a tincture where you add it to alcohol or apple cider vinegar, you add it to witch hazel and let the constituents fuse inside the witch hazel, and then you put it in a spray bottle and you can spray it on wounds. Um, so that is another way that you can use it. You can also grind it into a powder and make it like a stop bleed powder, but all natural. You can even combine it with other things to make a stop bleed septic or so the powder or liniment. You can make it in a tea, and you can have about 2 to 3 cups daily. Is usually the serving. You can make a tincture, and that's 1 to 2 milliliters, 2 to 4 times a day, and that's if you're doing it internally. Of course, externally, there's not really a limit, because if you're gonna use it to stop bleeding and clean a wound, then you would put it on there first and then finish doctoring up with everything else. Now, if there is an emergency, you want to take a larger dose because you want to try to stop the bleeding or the hemorrhaging as much as you possibly can until you can get to the emergency room, of course. And the shepherd's purse is most potent when it's fresh, but that's true with most herbs. If you're able to get and use them fresh, then you can. Maybe make sure you don't do any kind of an oil with a fresh herb, though, because there's too much water content in it and you'll actually ruin your oil. But as far as tinctures and witch hazel, because there's actually witch hazel does have alcohol in it unless you get the alcohol free kind. But if you use that, then you can use the fresh herb fine. Same with tea, you can do that fresh as well. Alright, now we're going to talk about synergies. I don't really have a lot on here, but it's really going to depend on why you're trying to combine the herbs. Like, what is your intention? What are you trying to get out of the mixture that you're making? So, of course, I put yarrow on there because it's also an herb for first aid and for stopping bleeding and antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic. So, of course, those go well together. Rose, plantain. Plantain is another one that is very easy to find in most places. So, you can combine those. Again, it's really going to depend on what you want the outcome to be. What is the purpose? What are your intentions? And what you're making. So, that's why I don't have a lot on here. Because actually, shepherd's purse is absolutely fine to use all by itself, too. I think I've told the story before where I was cooking and I cut my finger or my thumb, and so I was like, oh no, it won't stop bleeding, so what do I do? And then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, this was when I was first learning herbalism, right? So I'm like, oh no, wait, I know, I just learned about shepherd's purse. I have dried shepherd's purse in my apothecary. So I ran and got some dried shepherd's purse, and I just took it and put it straight on the cut, and it stopped the bleeding. And then I set it on there for a little bit, and after it stopped bleeding, I rinsed it off, and I put some boo-boo cream on there, and wrapped it up, and it worked right away. I was surprised at how fast it worked, considering it was just the dried herb and I didn't have it tinctured. I didn't have it in any kind of salve or anything else. I just used the herb and put it straight on there. Alright, so next we're going to talk about harvesting and cultivation. So basically, it likes disturbed soil, farm fields. You may find it basically everywhere. If you get to know it, what it looks like, and learn how to identify it, you may start seeing it everywhere. So it actually was originally from Europe. It was brought over here, and then it became an invasive species in the United States. So, of course, certain areas it may grow more than others. Southeast Missouri, I should be able to see it everywhere. Um, so if you do see it and you do recognize it, grab you some up. Uh, it likes like I said, disturbed soil and fields. And what does Southeast Missouri have a plethora of? Fields. So farm fields. So look for it. The leaves are like almost look like dandelion leaves. Those like jaggedy edges, and the stalks are narrow in the center, and the flowers are like layers of like heart-shaped leaves, and the parts used medicinally are basically all of the plants, but especially the aerial parts. Remember, aerial means anything above the ground, so stem, leaves, flowers. And this is what it looks like. So as you can, I know this is not the best picture, but you see how the leaves are pretty jaggedy like dandelion leaves are. And then the flowers are like these little tiny white flowers on there. And then next I'm going to talk about contraindications. Contraindications, if you remember, are cautions and warnings for specific people or specific groups that you have to be very careful when you use it or don't use it at all. So, of course, pregnant women, you do not want to use this because it's an emmenagogue and it stops bleeding, and it could definitely affect, your pregnancy and your baby, and you don't want to do that. Now, as I also said earlier, when it gets to the labor stage and after labor stage, then it would be okay to use it. But make sure you are always, no matter who you are, whether you're on this list or not, always tell your doctors, if you're working with doctors, if you're on prescriptions, always make sure there are no contraindications. I said this all the time, and if you are on medications, but you do want to start using herbs and putting those into your daily routine, please always consult an herbalist or naturopathic practitioner who is familiar with herbalism or trained in herbalism. I also see clients, so you can also call me, or you can schedule an appointment with me and have a free consultation on my website, Hidden Garden Oasis. And I would be happy to work with you and see what we can do. And make sure your doctor knows if you are on any kind of herbal supplements and what you do as well. I make sure my doctors know everything, and they work with me to try to keep me as natural as possible. But you have to work with them. You have to tell them everything. All right, next on our list of contraindications is never treat bleeding without first determining its cause. Okay, so the reason for that would be because what if you stop the bleeding, you don't know what it is, and you get to the emergency room, and they're like, well, why are you bleeding? Why do you think you're bleeding? And you have no idea. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing. Next, it is not recommended if you have a history of strokes or thrombosis or anything like that. I do have a history of strokes, but I only keep that tincture to take internally in case of an emergency, because the reason why I had strokes was because I had a brain hemorrhage. So now that my family knows the signs of a brain hemorrhage, we keep it there just in case so they can get me to a hospital. So see, everybody's situation is different, and that's why you have to be careful. Next on the list, it's not for children under the age of 2. It is not for pregnancy, I told you that already, or nursing women. Um, use under supervision when you have acute kidney inflammation or high blood pressure. Um, topical use, you can use the seeds. They can cause skin blistering if you use the seeds topically. That means on your skin, on top of your skin. And it may cause heart palpitations if you take large doses. And that's why those recommended dosages you might want to go by, which I had earlier in the preparations. And you know, if you take something, no matter what it is, and you're not feeling right about it, you may want to stop and take note so that you don't do it again, because clearly it's not agreeing with you for some reason. All right. Lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Shepard's purse. So, it's in the root family. It's in the mustard family. Like I said, it's broccoli, it's mustard, it's Brussels sprouts, cabbage, all of that. And the Latin name for cabbage is capricella, which means little box. It references the fruit. The common name shepherd's purse derives from the appearance of the flowers or the fruit. It doesn't actually have fruit like strawberry fruit. Like the fruit of the plant would be the flowers. So basically, because the flowers look like little pouches. Now, to go further into that, so apparently, way back in the day, shepherds would use they herd sheep. They would use every single part of the sheep, and they would use the sheep's testicles to make little leather bags for their money to carry around. So, and that's why they would call it a shepherd's purse, and these flowers resemble the little pouches that they would carry around. I wasn't sure how I was going to get to the point, but I got to the point. So that's why they were called shepherd's purse. And I'm going to show that picture again. I'm sure you can find better pictures on there as well. And if you're like me, if you use like Google Lens when you're out in the wild just to double check yourself, like if you think that's what it is, you use like Google Lens or some kind of plant identifier. Because if you're not 100% sure on something, you don't want to get a lookalike that ends up being. So be very careful. All right. And then again, May subscription box. It's $10 off if you use the code BOX1. And it is herbal first aid for this month. And you get the bug repellent, herbal bug repellent spray. You get the wound cincher. You get the stop bleeding tincture. You get boo-boo cream. And it's all kinds of goodness. Over $100 worth of stuff. With your $10 off code, you get it for $39.99. And it renews every month if you do the subscription box. Here's my information. Hidden Garden Oasis. The website's Hidden Garden Oasis. Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok. I need to add that on here. YouTube channel. Free classes. Also have the Natural Healing Community group on Facebook if you want to join that. And you can contact me via email, jennifersmith@hiddengardenOasis.com. Call me and leave me a message, and I'll call you back. Go to the website, schedule a free consultation, whatever